You are listening to American Nightmare Radio. Tonight's report centers on a name that appears without warning, across decades, across locations, and across individuals who have never had contact with one another. A name that does not wait to be introduced. A name that does not build trust. A name that does not pretend. Zozo. The entity commonly referred to as the Zozo demon is not tied to a single haunting, a single structure, or a single moment in time. It does not belong to one house, one tragedy, or one documented event that can be traced and contained. Instead, it appears wherever communication is attempted through a Ouija board. And that detail is what separates this from most reported encounters. Because in traditional cases, alleged entities follow a pattern. They begin slowly. They respond carefully. They build familiarity. They allow the participants to feel in control. They ease into the interaction, gradually shifting tone over time. Zozo does not follow that structure. In a significant number of accounts, the name interrupts the session without invitation. Participants begin normally, hands resting lightly on the planchette, fingers barely applying pressure, asking simple questions, receiving simple answers. Yes, no. Occasionally short words, spelled slowly, one letter at a time. There is hesitation in the movement, pauses between letters, the kind of motion often explained as subconscious influence. Nothing stands out. Nothing feels unusual. The environment remains calm, controlled, predictable. And then, without warning, something changes. The movement accelerates, not gradually, not subtly, but immediately. The planchette begins to move faster, gliding instead of sliding, covering distance with unnatural speed. The pauses disappear. The hesitation is gone. The tone shifts. Responses shorten, then collapse entirely into repetition. Z, O, Z, O, again, and again, and again. Witnesses consistently describe the same transition. What begins as uncertain, hesitant motion becomes sharp, direct, and forceful. The movement no longer feels shared. It feels singular, as if the board is no longer being guided by multiple participants, but by something focused, something intentional. At this point, many attempt to end the session. They try to lift their hands, to say goodbye, to break contact, to stop the interaction entirely. And in multiple reports, they describe hesitation, a delay, not physical restraint, not pressure, but a moment where the body does not respond immediately to the decision to move, as if something is holding attention in place. The planchette continues, faster now, more aggressive, moving with precision, sometimes shifting away from letters and toward numbers. A countdown begins. The motion accelerates with each pass. The sound of the planchette becomes louder, sharper against the board. The room grows quieter. Participants stop speaking. No one gives instructions. No one asks questions. They simply watch as the movement continues without input. And then, just as abruptly as it began, it stops. The planchette goes still. The board becomes silent. The room returns to normal. For a moment, everything appears unchanged. The tension fades. Breathing slows. The environment stabilizes. And for a brief period, it feels like nothing happened. But that feeling does not last. Because what separates Zozo from other reported entities is not the session itself. It is what follows. Participants frequently describe a lingering presence, a sense that something did not remain confined to the board, that something continued beyond the interaction. Shadows forming where there should be none. Subtle movement in peripheral vision. Shifting shapes that disappear when looked at directly. Sounds that are difficult to place. Soft at first. Scratching. Movement along walls. Changes in the air that cannot be explained. Some report waking in the middle of the night with no clear cause, no sound, no interruption, just awake, with the immediate and unshakable awareness that they are not alone, not visually, not directly, but through presence, through awareness. Others describe recurring dreams, the same environment, the same layout, a figure standing at a distance, not approaching, not speaking, not moving, just there, watching, always watching. The consistency of these reports is what draws attention. Not a single story, not an isolated incident, but a pattern, repeated across individuals who have no connection to one another. The same name, the same escalation, the same aftermath. Tonight, we examine several of these accounts, not as proof, not as confirmation, but as a pattern. And patterns, when they repeat often enough, become difficult to ignore. Before we continue tonight's report, consider subscribing to American Nightmare for more documented encounters, weekly radio episodes, and full investigations into cases like this. And now, back to our report. The first incident comes from a group of 3 college students. No prior experience, no expectations beyond curiosity. The session took place late in the evening, inside a small apartment, with minimal lighting and no outside noise. The environment was controlled, quiet, nothing out of place. At first, the interaction appeared normal. The planchette moved slowly, responding to simple questions. Yes, no, occasionally spelling short words with noticeable hesitation between each letter. The type of movement often attributed to subconscious influence. There was no indication of anything unusual. No sudden movements, no unexplained responses. Everything followed expectation, until the movement changed. Without being prompted, the planchette began sliding rapidly between letters. Z, O, Z, O. The pattern repeated immediately, faster the second time, then faster again. The participants initially laughed, assuming one of them was pushing. Each denied it. The movement continued, stronger now, more deliberate. The planchette no longer paused between letters. It struck them, quickly, repeatedly. Z, O, Z, O, over and over. One participant later described the sensation as being pulled rather than pushing, as if their hands were following the movement instead of guiding it. When they attempted to lift their hand, there was hesitation, a delay, not force, not pressure, just a moment where the action did not happen immediately, as if something required their attention to remain. Then the board shifted from letters to numbers. The countdown accelerated rapidly. The tone in the room changed. Conversation stopped. No one spoke. The only sound was the movement of the planchette against the board. The session ended abruptly. Hands pulled away, board pushed aside. Silence. That night, one of the participants woke suddenly. No sound, no movement, no clear reason, just awake. They turned toward the corner of the room and saw something standing there, not fully visible, not clearly defined, but darker than the darkness around it. Still, watching. They remained frozen, unable to look away, until eventually falling back asleep. Over the following days, all 3 participants reported disturbances, light scratching sounds during the night, objects slightly out of place, doors not fully closed, and recurring dreams involving the same presence, always at a distance, always watching. The second incident involves a man who conducted multiple sessions alone. Initially, nothing unusual. Slow responses, inconsistent movement, no clear pattern, until one session changed. Without prompting, the board began spelling Z, O, Z, O, repeated continuously. He attempted to redirect the interaction, asked questions. The responses shifted, short, direct, hostile, no, stay, soon. The movement became aggressive, sharp, erratic. He ended the session immediately. That night, he reported hearing movement inside his home, subtle at first, then clearer, footsteps, doors shifting slightly open, air movement without a source. Over the next several days, the activity intensified. He described seeing movement in reflective surfaces that did not match his own. Mirrors were eventually covered. The board was discarded. The disturbances did not stop immediately. They faded slowly, over time, but the feeling of being watched remained. The final case involves a group of teenagers during a sleepover. Multiple witnesses. The session lasted only minutes before the name appeared. Zozo. repeated rapidly, aggressively. One participant became visibly distressed, breathing uneven, unable to focus. The session ended immediately, but that night, others reported hearing her speak while asleep, not in conversation, not responding, but repeating phrases in a tone they did not recognize, low, unsteady, unfamiliar. The following morning, she had no memory of it. No further sessions were conducted, but the room was avoided. The house felt different, and the experience was not discussed again. Across each of these cases, the pattern remains unchanged. The same name, the same escalation, and the same presence that does not end when the session does. The question surrounding the Zozo phenomenon is not whether every account is genuine. It is why the details remain consistent, even when the individuals involved have no connection to one another. Skeptics point to the ideomotor effect, the idea that participants unconsciously guide the movement of the planchette without realizing it. A well-documented psychological explanation, one that has been studied, observed, and replicated, and in many cases, it likely applies. But it does not fully explain the repetition of a specific name. It does not explain the abrupt shift in behavior or the consistent reports of activity that continues after the session has ended. There is also the argument of suggestion, that once a name becomes known, it spreads. It influences expectation, shapes perception, alters interpretation, and that explanation carries weight, because expectation can shape experience. But references to the name Zozo appear in accounts long before widespread online discussion, before message boards, before viral storytelling, before the name became commonly recognized, which introduces a gap, a space where explanation becomes incomplete. And that space is where this phenomenon continues to exist, not confirmed, not dismissed, but repeated, across time, across location, across individuals who had no reason to expect the same result. Over time, the name Zozo has become more than a report. It has become a warning, recognized by those familiar with these accounts, a signal to end the session immediately, to disconnect, to stop engaging, because regardless of explanation, the outcome tends to follow the same progression: escalation, fear, and the lingering sense that something was invited and did not leave. Whether that presence is external or something drawn out from within the participants themselves remains unknown. But the pattern remains, and patterns, repeated often enough, begin to carry weight. Tonight's accounts are only a fraction of what has been reported. There are more, many more, stories that surface quietly, shared in small circles, often dismissed, but rarely forgotten. Each one following the same structure, the same sequence, the same name, Zozo. You've been listening to American Nightmare Radio. We'll be back Wednesday night with another report. Until then, stay aware and be careful what you choose to reach out to, because some things do not require permission to respond. And once they do, they may not remain where you first encountered them. They may follow, they may wait, and they may return without warning.